Thank you, Jackson Hole's Historical Society and Museum, for inviting me to speak. And thank you, Morgan. And thank you, panelists, for coming and telling your stories. And Morgan's going to have some great questions for you. The inspiration for this book that I produced, and I'm just going to get these slides rolling here, are the people. All of you snowboarders and skiers were absolutely the inspiration for me to produce this big book, The Arc of Skiing, Jackson Hole, 45 Years Behind the Lens. And with little or no budget, how did I create this big book? Well, it all started with these big backpacks. For all during my 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, over a 5-decade period, I hauled around these packs, and Bob Woodall, my business partner and fellow photographer, we were out shooting using the packs that we could find, and nobody made a rear entry pack. And so we decided, and we hired Dennis Prevost, who was a local canvas sewer, to create a rear entry pack. You get to the site, you put this pack down in the snow. This is a 600 millimeter lens, and this was our original pack, and we built these ourselves until finally the industry caught up with our idea. People started building rear entry packs. This one is made by Dekine, and it works great. We cut these closed cell foam inserts ourselves, and this allows you to carry around your gear and go to your site, get your cameras out, do the shot, throw the pack on, there's no snow on the back, and you take off down the hill. So that was a kind of a big deal for us to figure that out. So how did I get started in this line of work? When my second year on skis, I only started skiing when I moved here. I was 23 years old, and it took me 3 years to learn how to ski. My second year on skis, I went with a friend in the spring, and we skied once is enough, couloir, and it scared the heck out of me. I wasn't actually planning on skiing it. I was going to watch him ski it. I was going to go back and ski Four Shadows, but I watched him ski it. I'm like, conquer your fear. You can do this. So I did it. I went home and wrote about it in my diary. A friend read the diary entry and said, you should send this to Powder Magazine. I worked on it some more, put it in third person, and the title of it was Craze Teaches Fool That Once is Enough, but Twice is Nice. I sent it to Powder Magazine, and sure enough, my career begins. So that was amazing, and because I could write and shoot, it opened up a whole world of travel photojournalism, and over the next 20 years, I wound up traveling around the world and skiing mountain ranges in Turkey, Slovenia, Bolivia, Peru, China, India, Kashmir, and I climbed and skied 4 of the 7 summits: Mount Elbrus in Russia, Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa, Mount Vinson in Antarctica, and Alaska's Denali. So how did I learn the skills needed to produce this book? I raised the money to print and distribute it by doing a pre-order campaign through Kickstarter. And then all of the work prior to that, I was able to do myself because Bob Woodall and I started publishing our own magazine. And this is where we need to go to the next video. And here's all the people that inspired me. And you'll see some familiar faces, plenty of them. And that, okay, now here we are. This is me in my office in the hostel. And here's Bob Woodall at his desk. And out of this office, we started producing magazines. And our first magazine was called The Village Focus. And over the years, as we at first did all the work ourselves, and then after a few issues, we hired a small staff, editor, designer, ad salesperson. And pretty soon, we were talking about more than just Teton Village and the Jackson Hole ski area. We were talking about Snow King and Grand Targhee, and so we changed the title to the Jackson Hole Skier. And then one year, as we were visiting with our ad clients, one of them said, you know, I love the skier. I'll always advertise in it, but I'd really like to see a dining guide. So we started publishing a dining guide in 1988, and we published that for 37 years. And then in 1999, we loved Bon Appetit magazine, and we fashioned these covers after the covers that we saw on Bon Appetit. We used our skiers. This is Kate Zeliff. And then in 1999, we started a summer magazine, Mountain Country. And we changed the name of that to the Adventure Guide. And here's the first, we got Mountain Country Adventure Guide. And this is my wife, Holly, on the cover, Solitude Lake. And then this is me. I lashed a tripod to my boat and ran a cord up my arm and was very careful not to dip it in the lake. And so this is how I learned the skills to do the book, to publish, to self-publish my book. I was able to build it and do all the photo work, preparing the photos for the press myself. And so these covers, you know, at some point, somebody in the ski area marketing department said, you know, most magazines kind of, you know, land on one masthead and stick with it. And we just, I don't know. I mean, we just kept doing whatever felt right that year. And eventually, we did land on this as our, well, then we didn't stick with it. But we knew, we liked it. There it is again. And so maybe now, we're kind of varying again. But, now we're really varying. And we're still experimenting. And, you know, over the years, different skiers, now we've landed on the final masthead. And all along, I've been wanting to do a book, and I never could spend enough time until we finally sold our magazines. This is our next to last issue. Here's our final issue. This is Kate Zeliff on the cover. And I could finally start my book, The Arc of Skiing Jackson Hole. Only before I came up with that title, the title I wanted was People I've Known and Places We've Skied. Now, this is my design, and of course I would hire a designer. It would look a lot better than that. And if I ever do a second book, it will be People I've Known and Places We've Skied. And the cover is Doug Coombs skiing off the summit of Mount Vinson. But I knew the first book had to be just Jackson Hole and the surrounding area, including Snow King and Targhee and some of the surrounding mountains. And so, how did I select the photos that went into the book? So, over the 45 years, I shot film for the first 30 years and digital for the last 15 years. And all along we would, you know, scan. We have a Nikon 5000 cool scan. And with that scanner, we are able to scan all the film that is in this book. And we've made posters and we've done even bigger prints with that scanner. And I already had 3,000 scans at that point. And so I just dove right into building a book. And at first it was People I've Known, Places We've Skied. And I just started throwing together pages. And along the way, I changed the title and got more of an idea of where I'm going with this thing. And then I had the 3,000 scans. So I just knew there are other pictures that are not scanned. So I went into the warehouse where all the film is stored and started digging through the film. And I made another 1,000 scans, and then like it takes a long time. You got to stop scanning until you know what you're really going to use. So I then got the iPhone out, and I made another 7,000 iPhone pictures of slides that I wanted to consider using. And so through that whole process, I had about 11,000 images from film, and that took 9 months to go through all the film and do all that work. And then I spent about 3 months at the computer going through all the 15 years of digital images, and I selected another 10,000 to consider for the book. So now I have 21,000 images, and I'm pouring through them. I got them down to 12,000, and then I enlisted the help of Jason Tattersall, was one of my main skiers. I worked with him over the 5-decade period. 4 of those decades, I worked with Tat, as he's nicknamed, and he was a really hard worker at getting the photos, and he was always super interested in seeing the results of our photo shoots, and not just ours, but all the photos that we'd ever taken. He just dug into these files, and he just spent hours and hours looking at them. So I invited him over to be a guest editor. He spent about 6 hours looking through these 12,000 pictures and selected his favorites. And then I asked another skier who's a very visual person, Jeff Ledger, who was also in the book a lot, to come over and make his selection. So those guys really helped me narrow it down. I'm building the book. I've got like 600 pages and 1,000 photographs in the book, and so I have to cut that in half. I don't want to build a book that big. So I'm really close now. I've got it down to almost 400 pages. I'm thinking, I'm really close now. I'm going to announce that this book is almost ready. And this is about 3 years into the project, and I've been talking about it on social media the whole time. Once I decided on my title, I announced my title so nobody else would think about using it. And then I'm really close. I go, okay, I've just got to do a little bit of writing. I'm not going to do much writing. I'm just going to launch this book. I'm ready to go. And so I asked some friends who are social media influencers to say something nice about the book that I should have out in about 6 months. And so one of the people that made a nice comment was David Gonzalez, who's the author of Jackson Hole on a Grand Scale, large format coffee table book with a whole lot of history and words in it. And his comment was, Wade's book is going to be a must read for everyone in Jackson Hole. And when I read that, I went, okay, I've got to write. I was going to try to skip on the writing, but so I dove into writing. I wrote for 9 months. It added 2 years to the project, but it was the right thing to do. And I'm really glad he made that comment, because I was seriously figuring on maybe dodging the writing part. And the writing part is really important, and it helps tell the story. So I wrote for 9 months, and I only wrote about the 70s and 80s. I knew I had to write about the 90s and the 21st century, but I really concentrated on the 70s and 80s. I wrote about 9,000 words, edit, print it out, mark it up, make the corrections, print it out again. I probably went through 30 edits before I felt like I was ready to show it to an editor and hire an editor. And I asked Jeff Burke, who is editor of Backcountry Magazine. He's a writer, and he's on the Jackson Hole Ski Patrol. He was the perfect person, and he was available. So he dove into my, by now, 14,000 words, and immediately cut half of them out of there, or more like about 5,000 words. We just don't need it. Okay, don't need it. Broke it up into bite-sized pieces, and now I've got something I can really work with to finish the book. And that's really, what allowed me to finish the book, was to have an editor come in and tell me what to do. And I was so grateful that he had the right ideas. And here I am in our storage shed. The slides start off in the little yellow boxes. They wind up in the sheets, and in the 24-drawer file cabinets or more. I mean, there's 500,000 images in that storage shed. And it took 6 years, and so then the final piece of the puzzle is your copy editor, Dina Mishev. I had another local person who is a writer, an editor, and she was a perfect copy editor. I actually printed the entire book on my printer, and she marked it up. I made corrections. We printed it out again, maybe found a couple of other things, and then off to the printer. And now we have a book. And now I've got some stories behind the photos coming up, and thanks very much, and we'll move right into those now.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Beers and Banter here at the History Museum. Tonight, we are talking about the Arc of Skiing in Jackson Hole. It's really great to see such a full room. Thank you all for being patient with us and squeezing in here and downstairs for the folks downstairs. Just a little disclaimer, because I know it's packed and some of you won't be able to hear and see everything, but we are recording the program tonight, and we will post that on our History Museum's YouTube channel after, so sometime next week. So if you want to come back and listen to these guys again, if you don't want to be recorded, although the audience, it's really only the mics that can get picked up, so you guys can say whatever you want.
Gotta dump it on Instagram to give Wade a boost.
I mean, clearly he has the boost that he needs. I would say it's really just incredible to see this turnout tonight. So I want to start off with seeing a show of hands of who in this room and outside skis. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. No, I don't want to call anyone out. And who's excited for winter? Right? Yeah. Okay. That's a little less. Great. Well, if you did not raise your hand for one of those, I think perhaps that will change after tonight's conversation. The whole goal is to get everyone stoked for the winter. So first off, I just want to say, share some thanks to those who've made this program possible. A big thank you and introduction to Wade McKoy. I think you all know Wade, it seems like. It's been really cool to see how much heart and soul Wade has put into this book and his love and care for Jackson Hole's history. And he's been a really great partner to put this evening together with us here at the History Museum. So thank you, Wade. I also want to say thank you to our panelists. We have Bob, Cisco, Dave, AJ, Rick, and Benny tonight. And they will introduce themselves in more detail a little bit later on. And of course, a final thank you to our museum members and donors who make these community programs possible. If you are not yet a member of the museum and you like what you see tonight, and you care about Jackson Hole history and our community character, please join us. You can see Betsy or Catherine down on the first floor, or grab a brochure as you head out. So thank you all for making this possible. Tonight, unlike some other Beers and Banter programs, it's a little bit different. We have 3 kind of parts of the evening for you. First, we're going to show a short video about Wade and his new book. Then Wade is going to show a few of his favorite photographs. And then I'm going to help kind of facilitate a discussion, a Q&A with our panelists. And then hopefully we'll have some time for questions from you all. So we're hoping to wrap up the program around 7:30 or so. And I invite everyone to stick around the museum, head downstairs, mingle a bit, buy a book. The books are for sale downstairs. Buy a beer and get some signatures too. I have earmarked all of my pages that I want to have signed. So those are kind of the housekeeping things. So now I want to welcome Wade.
So I got to give a shout out to Bob Woodall. Bob deserves every bit as much as I do. So the rest of my part of this is I picked 3 photos to talk about. And I get asked sometimes, has anyone ever hit you? And this is the moment before impact. So Coombs and I, that's Doug, We're on the work tram, and we get into Corbett's, but we are not released from the top of the mountain until that first public car is coming up the hill. So we've really got about 10 minutes before the public is on us. And in this case, Doug went up on this little thing in the middle. What's that called, Benny? The little knob in the middle. You hike up. You told me what it was called once. Anyway, so Doug's climbing up to get in position, and I'm skiing down. I've traversed across to get in position, and right as I'm set up,
right before you get to S&S.
Yeah. So I've stomped out my platform, and I've got my pack off. I pull the camera out. I'm ready to go, and here comes the first public, and he traverses right through the shot, going over to ski over here. So I go, Doug's ready. I go, Doug, okay, wait, I got to hike up. So to go uphill in deep snow on a steep slope, you pretty much have to do pull-ups using your skis. So I got my skis, I put my pack back on, and I'm doing pull-ups, wading through the snow, pull up, wade through the snow. Finally, I get up to the guy's traverse track. Well, now I'm closer than I want to be, and Doug doesn't really have enough room. But we didn't know that. And so this is kind of like the mole turn. You go, the snow is so deep, he comes off, and we can go to the next shot. So this is when he comes off. That's on the title page of the book. So he lands and goes under the snow, and by the time he comes back up, here he is. And so now go back to that other shot, and this is what it looks like when you're about to get hit. And Doug knew that he was about to hit me, and I knew I was about to get hit, so I lowered the camera so it wouldn't knock me in the head, and Doug tackled me. I'm just wind knocked out of me. Both of us are sliding down the hill head first. He's holding on to me. He's holding on to me. We're sliding down the hill. We get stopped. You okay? You okay? Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay. And I'm brushing my camera. It's just this big ball of snow. Doug hikes up and gets my skis, brings them back down to me. Says, okay, you sure you're okay? Yeah, I'm okay. I'm brushing on my camera. Okay, see ya. So that's the only time. Actually, there was one other time I got hit, but it was when Doug checked a turn off of my backpack. I was underneath him, and he came off the thing and kind of lost his edge. And instead of hopping over me, he turned off of my backpack as I saw him coming. I went down like this, and luckily I had kept my pack on, so he kind of just skipped over the top. So if you're going to get hit, you get hit by the best skier in the world because they know how to do it. So another question that I get asked a lot is, when you're on the edge. One more. So this is a picture of Chris Figgenjaw. I'm standing above him. We're on the edge. He's roped in. I'm not. But this is Corbett's Kings and Queens, and oftentimes we do have to get right on the edge. And it is nice to have a rope. You try to carry one off. Sometimes you don't have it, and I didn't have it. And, I'm being very careful because I don't want to fall on Figs. And he's roped in. He'd be all right, but I'd be over the edge. And so that's something that we have to deal with as ski photographers, and you just try to do the best you can to stay safe. And then the other question I get asked a lot is, have you ever been really afraid of what's going to happen to the skier? And this is Jamie Pierre's 250-foot world record cliff drop. Jamie planned this for about 3 years, and he called me about 2 years into the planning process and said that he'd found a spot. Jason Tattersall helped him find this spot where, he had to have the right year. He had the spot, but he needed the right year. And it took a couple more years for that big snow year where the snow just came in just in the right times, time and again, built up the layers. And so he'd done over 100 feet before, and he felt like he had it in his mind to do this safely, and I felt like he did too, and I really wasn't too concerned. And my wife Holly tells me that I was, as I was packing up the gear to go over there, that I was nervous, but I don't know. I write in a book that I wasn't nervous until I saw it. And when Jamie lands, his skis slapped the top of the snow and made a really loud crack. And when I heard that, I went, he's broken. That's the sound of a body breaking. And his friend, photographer Adam Clark, that's his sidestep track up. Adam was the safety guy, and Adam shot it. There were like 4 still photographers on this, and TGR film crew, and Jamie brought his own film guy, so it was well documented. This was one of the first digital photos I ever took, and because it was digital, not the series, but just the shot as he's going off the top, which is the one that's in the book. I didn't put this series in the book because, I don't know, I kind of like it better with just that one image and not all of these. But usually I don't use 2 cameras, but in this case I did. So this is the master shot. That's with the wide angle lens, and then all of the rest of these are with a long telephoto lens. And then actually ESPN magazine put all these together. Or was it ESPN or?
No, I did.
Oh, you?
I put that together.
Well, no, ESPN put that one together. You may have put one together too. Anyway, who knows? So Jamie thought that he was going to land right about here. This is how he wants to be when he lands. You can't land on your feet. You'd break your legs. So you land on your back. But he was still 100 feet off the deck when he thought he was going to land. And so, the aerodynamics put his skis, as Jeff Burke said, anywhere but below him. And there it is.
4 impressive photos.
So, right. So, well, that's my bit. And I'd like to thank the History Museum for having us here. And I'd like to thank the panelists, including Bob, for being here. And now we'll turn it over to the panelists.
Great. So we'll start over here with you guys. We always start our Beers and Banter with each of you going through and sharing with us when and why you first came to Jackson Hole. Or maybe you were born here, but that's also a reason. And why you chose to make this your home. So if one of you wants to grab the microphone and start us off, AJ, yeah. Benny, we'll go left to right. Until it goes green. Yeah.
Moment of fame, maybe.
Yeah, and then hold it close to your,
Hey guys, I'm Dave the Wave. Let's look forward to this ski season, number 1.
Yeah.
So number 2, I came here in 1971 to Pepe's summer ski camp.
Thank you so much.
Then I met Penny.
Sorry about that.
Oh, sorry. Anyhow, and then I met Benny. And is this what we were?
And then why did you choose to make this? Why did you stay?
Bantering?
What? Yeah, you're bantering. You're doing it.
So why I decided to stay here was because I thought the best skiers that I'd ever heard about or seen were here. And it started with your coaches, Pepe, Corky Fowler. He was touching into freestyle and so on. And then Benny's family and the local families. So, and of course, our tram and the best terrain anywhere in North America. So that's my banter.
Badass banter.
Hi, I'm Benny Wilson. I grew up at Teton Village. My parents would get me private ski lessons with Pepe. And he was like, "What do you want to do?" I go, "Ski." I'm like 8 years old, you know, it's like, I guess, I don't know. He goes, okay, we'll go up on the mountain, we'll ski. And I'm like, I'm not that good. Let's go up Après-Vous first. My parents built a hostel out at the village. Invited everybody in the world to come stay there for $10 a night. I have a list of the World Cup skiers that have stayed there during the World Cup races, the room assignments. And I look through them, I'm going like, oh my God, 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 oh my God. We moved here in '66, and I've been here ever since. Same reason as Davey. It's like the skiing's phenomenal. I drove down to Colorado this past weekend, and they don't have any snow either. I'm like, damn. So I came back. So it's good to be here. And hopefully everybody buys a book tonight.
Hi, everyone. Rick Hunt here. Let's see. My parents came out here when I was like 2 years old on a family trip. My grandmother had property out here already, and when they came home, they asked me if I wanted to move out to Jackson Hole and be a ski bum. And I said, hell yeah. I was only 3 years old, but I knew what I wanted to do. So anyway, I was no swear.
You were already
Oh, yeah.
there.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was a great upbringing. I learned how to ski through the Wilson School winter sports program, and my wife was a Wilson School teacher, and her father, who's sitting right over there, was a past Wilson School teacher who ran the winter sports program and continues today. And Benny and I both went through that. And we'd go out for a half-day lessons at the village, once a week on Wednesday.
And then stay there.
Yeah, and then
Not going home.
yeah, we were fed hot dogs and a half a banana or something like that, some special meal for skiing. Anyway, that's how I learned how to ski, and I've had the passion ever since, and I don't plan on leaving.
Hello, I'm AJ Cargill. I was born in Michigan and started skiing at a young age. Wavy here's from Michigan as well. Learned to ski there, but my folks decided to move to Sun Valley, Idaho in 1979. So we were skiing over there. My first travel ski race was over here to Jackson. So I got a little bit of a view of it, but there was no snow. And all the races were always canceled in Jackson. So it was kind of like, well, they don't get the snow. And then I went to college and I moved to Colorado. I skied freestyle. And I've heard of this thing called extreme skiing competition. And my friends like Shane McConkey and those boys all dragged me to the competition. And I hit a rock in Crested Butte my first run and fell and was out of the competition. But then I stayed and watched the rest of it, and I decided I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna move to Jackson Hole and go be where the best are and ski the best terrain. And when I got here, I think in 94, maybe 93, 94, I think, man, we've had a lot of snow since those years. So thank God I gave it another try.
Hello, everybody.
Cisco, woohoo!
I'm Cisco Oldani. I moved to Wilson, Wyoming in 1972, and my parents traveled across country from New York to the Bay Area and Berkeley, and they stopped in Jackson and Whitefish. And after the summer in Berkeley, we moved to Jackson in 72, or Wilson. I went to the Wilson School, and Misha Zveganzoff and JP Bolton, and there were only a handful of us in Wilson at the time, and JP had a banana board, which was kind of the first Coleco snowboard, and we used that on the side of the hill, and he's got great stories about him and his sister and snowboarding on this yellow banana board down right to the stagecoach there. And after grade school and high school, I moved on to create the boardroom in Jackson Hole in 1991, which was the first snowboard shop specific. We had Mark Loby at Ski and Sports, who sold a few snowboards, and I think Vinny saw us start up the boardroom, and he said, "We're going to carry snowboards at Hoback," and then TVS, and then everybody carried snowboards. So it was a booming time, and in '92, Latham Gaines and I started the Snowboard Club under Scott Bowdler's umbrella at Snow King. And I guess before that, Peppy, thank you. I was a snowboard instructor 88, 89, and 90 with George Pappas and Misha. And I got into extreme contests and coaching and taking kids to nationals. John Greiber and Steve Koch were off in the Tetons doing mountaineering stuff, and I was interested in coaching and summer camp and trying to get 200 days a year. So for a decade, I went from working for Peppy and synchronized snowboard demonstrations for him during our training before the hiring was finalized, and then I would go to Alaska and Mount Hood and New Zealand, and then back to Jackson again. So not planning on going anywhere. I'm raising my kids here. My oldest son, Rocco, is over here, and we love it here.
Got big. Oh my gosh.
Hello. What?
Yeah.
What? Talking there? Bob Woodall. I moved here in '73. I lived in Casper, and I was skiing there. I was on the ski patrol there, and after skiing, we would at Hogadon Basin. I would go down with Ed Wyan. You remember Fast Eddie? The two of us would go to this one bar, and we'd talk about skiing, and he'd talk about how great it was up here in Jackson Hole, and he was a river guide. And so, okay, I want to go there. So I took a year, after 3 years at Casper College, I said, okay, I need a break. So I came up here, and Ed said, I said, could I stay at your place for a little bit? And he says, yeah, you throw your sleeping bag out there on the lawn. You're fine. So anyway, I took the year off from college, and I'm still here. Beware of the year off from college, I always say. But I remember I tried to be on the ski patrol at Snow King, and I qualified for that. And then I tried at Targhee, but it was too far to drive. And then I got on the tram when it first opened, and riding up and looking out at the lower faces, I just was like, oh my Lord. And I was stuck here. I met this guy, Alan Tober. We were working at the Sojourner Inn. You remember the Sojourner? And this Jackson Hole Ski Corp wasn't happy with the guy that was taking pictures of the NASTAR races. So Alan and I decided, well, we both know photography, and I've been doing it in college and high school. Well, let's just take pictures of the NASTAR, and we'll make prints of them and take them over to the hostel and sell them. And anyway, Peppy gave us his blessing. So that was the start of photography. And it went from there. I started working with the marketing department. And second year here, I worked on the construction of the first Casper Bowl chair, which was the pride and joy of the ski corporation at the time. And I was working with the construction, and then Wade, who just arrived from Mississippi.
Yep.
He was on the cable installation crew for the which means digging a ditch. Okay, which means digging ditch and burying cable for the communication lines. Anyway, it all went from there, and don't want to leave right now.
I'm going to skip the next question because a lot of you answered this in your introductions. But so we're going to go to tell us about one of your biggest ski adventures here in Jackson Hole. What's one of your most memorable? One of the most memorable. I know you have a lot, but if you could describe, summarize one of your kind of biggest days out there or favorite places to ski, which I know is touchy, but.
I guess my biggest day was skiing that mountain right there, the Grand Teton, with Doug. It was 2006. It was January, and he called me up and he wanted to know if I wanted to try a first descent on the East Ridge, and I said, hell yeah. And there was 5 of us that were going, and my goal was to stay in the middle of the group as we went up to the summit, and I managed that. And it was Hans and Greg Collins that were leading the way, and I was in the middle, as I said, and Doug and Dyer were behind me. Doug was having some issues on the way up, but he overcame them, and we all summited. And then once we got to the summit, Doug took over, and he was saying, okay, you guys ski down here and I'll meet you down at the top of the Ford Couloir. And so I don't know who went first, but they all went, and then it was just Doug and I at the top, and I had my skis pointed a different direction. And Doug goes, what are you doing? I go, well, I'm going to go around through these boulders over here. And he goes, well, that's what I was going to do. And I was like, well, I'm already headed this way. And he said, okay, go. So I went down, I skied down to the other guys at the top of the Ford. And this is mid-January, boot top powder. And Doug skis down. Instead of coming down to us, he skis right to the top of the Ford Couloir. And I was like, oh, he wants first tracks. And I had my 35 SLR camera, and I was taking photos. And I got a great photo of Doug just making these perfect turns right down the Ford Couloir in boot top powder. And it was the last time I skied with him. And it was a real shame. He said, Rick, don't you do the East Ridge without me. And the reason we didn't try that day is we just had a late start, and we didn't have time to try a first descent. So we just went to Ford Chevy, the regular route down. And 2 months later, Hans and I succeeded in skiing the East Ridge. And I emailed Doug. He was off in Europe. And I was like, Doug, man, we did it. I'm sorry we did it without you, but we'll go do it again, and blah, blah, blah. And that was right at the end of March. And then, of course, Doug died that year. And I was coming home from a spring break family trip and found out the bad news. And I was coming home and thinking, gee, I hope Doug got my email. And waited until I got home, looked at my emails, and sure enough, he got my email and responded, and then passed away like 2 days later. So that was a big year. Yeah, but hats off to Doug. He was our guy.
Gee, now I have to follow that? Wow. One of the most memorable days skiing was 75. I was in high school, and ski club, we got to run the men's downhill and the women's downhill out of the village. And riding up the tram, it was like during inspections, and everybody started throwing their hats and grabbing other people's hats. And it went all the way around the tram till everybody had a different hat on than when they got on the tram. It was all the Cup guys. I was like, oh my. And so we get up to the top. We get the 4-round race. It was me, Greg Lancaster, and Terry Larson, and Pat Rockford. And we're all standing there going like, this is our hometown. We know what to do here. We just send it and just go. So we all started off, I mean, when I went, I came up to the downhill chute, and I remember like, I just threw him sideways and then dropped in. And Beck was like at the bottom, and he was like, what'd you do in the downhill chute? And I go, I threw him sideways. What'd you do? He goes, I went for it and just dropped in. And I was like, you're crazy. You know, it was like, but we all got to run that. And then we got to run the women's, run the women's. I'm standing in the start, and Anne Marie Perel was behind me, and she's going like, what do you think about these bent ski poles? I'm like, I don't know. I just bent them when down the basement of the hostel. It's like, we'll see how they work, you know. Ran that. And I came to the finish. My mom was down there, got pictures. And I was on a pair of 223. I need some water. 223. No, not Fishers. Dynamique, lead weighted. They were Craig Shanholter, who was on the U.S. ski team at the time. He let me borrow them. And it was like, came down on those. And I was like, okay, there's a training. And I was like, oh my God, these are like way too long. So my friend Henry, his girlfriend was Patty White, who was on the U.S. ski team. He had a pair of 213 Kesleys that I could borrow. And so I skied on them the next 2 days during the trip. That was like, I was like, oh my God, I've done it. Thank you.
I have a hard time deciding which is the most, and when you ask those questions, like your favorite, the best, the most. But Doug did ask me to tail guide when he did those ski mountaineering courses in the Tetons in the early days before he actually guided in the Tetons, or that they were allowed to guide, but they were sort of just loosely knit spring sessions. So that was very memorable. My first day shooting with you guys was incredibly memorable because I had arrived in town one day before, and my friend goes, "You should go ask those guys if you can ski with them." And sure enough, I knock on the little door, glass door. "Who are you?" And they powder day next day, let's go up the tram. Can you be there on the early tram? Sure. What are you going to wear? Do you have a clean jacket? Do you have spray colors? Do you have this? And sure. And I showed up, and there were 2 other girls, and we're at the top of the bowl, no tracks in it, bluebird day, probably like thigh deep snow. And the girls are like, you go first. I don't want to go first. You go first. Okay, I'll go first. And a photo from that day, I think it was with you, Bob, was the inside cover of the skier. So that was a pretty memorable day. Good start.
Well, like everybody else, there's so many wonderful memories, and I've been thinking about this the last couple of days. So the one that just came to me right now is I went to college in Idaho State in Pocatello, and I think when I was about 19 years old, I was standing at Corbett's Couloir, and there was one track in it, and it was at 10 o'clock in the morning. Nobody went to Corbett's Couloir. So I'm standing there looking, and I'm looking at this one track off to the left side of it. And then all of a sudden I hear a little bit, this ski patrolman comes skiing up to me, and he has no ski poles, and his coat's full of stuff, right? And he goes, "Okay, don't let anybody go in here." And he jumps in with no ski poles, skis down to Piggy's pocket. Does anybody know this? Over on the left side. He goes in there, then he backs out and he goes, "Fire in the hole." 10 o'clock in the morning, and during operating hours. I had never skied Corbett's ever. So I'm standing there, he backs out, and then he goes, okay. That was my first Corbett's. And I owe that to Dr. No, Peter McKoy, if anybody knows. So we love him, and we still love him now. And we love Pepe. And one of the, there's a million really great moments that happened in our skiing. And I have to say the famous words of Warren Miller, my best run is yet to come. And probably we agree with everybody with that. But the other really great thing is with Bob and Wade, when you're out doing a photo shoot and you ski by and they go, yeah, that is a great moment in skiing right there. That's what I have to think. Very good.
Well, I think one of the moment I'd like to talk about is with Wade, and he had brought some snowboarders to town, or they had come through town and found him, Tom Burt and Jim Zellers, and this was the late '80s, and it was the springtime, and we used to wait till springtime to go further in the backcountry, and Wade put together this trip with Tom Burt and Jim Zellers and Keith Lockwood and myself, and it was to the top of 10552. We had gone out early and hiked and hiked and hiked, and it was some of the earlier mountaineering for me. And we got to the summit, and everybody started putting on their dry clothes, and I didn't have any dry clothes. And I was freezing and wet. And we sat around the top for a minute, and then we set up for some shots, and boy, it was very memorable off the top of 10552 with just the big wide open bowl, and boy, that was very memorable for me. Thank you, Wade.
Well, I guess my most memorable things are some of the photo shoots. There's too many to recall. I think the one I recall the most vividly was in Corbett's, where I was up on the skiers left of Corbett's. I mean right, sorry. And Warren Miller was making a film, and these guys, can't remember, Craig Shanholzer, was he in? Anyway, these guys were going into Corbett's like I'd never seen before, just doing great air, doing flips. And then they were all done and ready to put their camera equipment away. And Joe Laro was the ski patrolman in charge. And he said, didn't want to be outdone. And so he starts hiking up. And the film crew says, no, we're not going to film it. And the other ski patrolman says, you better get this. So Laro hikes all the way up to the drapery, and he starts out and comes down, poling and poling and poling and skating as fast as he can. He ducks under the rope and he gets to the lip and he goes like a Galundi jump, a spread eagle Galundi jump. And he goes so far, he lands out of sight. And I didn't see what happened, but they did film it. And if you ever saw, I think, Rhythms, that's the ending sequence to their movie of this guy coming into Corbett's, rolling forward. He rolls forward and drops his poles and his hat and goggles and skis away. And that's the end of the movie.
Very memorable. Okay, one more final question from me. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on how you've seen the sport change over your decades of skiing in Jackson Hole, either for the good or maybe for the worse, but ideas about how skiing has changed over time.
Cool.
You need to go.
Hand me the red.
Show and tell with Benny.
Here we go. Evolution.
This is how it's changed. These are actually unmounted. My Wilson powder tools, Benny's all mountain. This is what happened. It's like, oops. Now we go, so much easier.
Well, while I have the mic real quick, I'd like to recognize Peppy Stiegler once again. When we moved here, I was like 3 or 4 and 65. And Peppy was a big part of my upbringing. And I remember in the mid 90s when I finally beat him in a race course. He was probably struggling with MS and I didn't even know. And that's the only reason I got him. But Peppy, you've been an inspiration to me my whole life. Cheers to Peppy. No, I don't want to talk about that. Fat skis are what changed. Yeah, fat skis. Social media.
And photography a lot. Being the only female up here, I would like to at least address how much it has changed as a woman in the sport. Yeah. I think the doors are much wider open these days, and it's great to see. And I feel that I was part of pioneering that, getting women to take more risks and to try harder things. I have some role models in the room, Lexi and Jamie back there, and there's a lot more. Yeah. But you know, my first attempts were keeping up with the boys all the time, and you know, I'd be the only one in the early tram line, and I got teased real hard. And you would put your skis up on top of your ski boot to make them look like they were longer skis, you know. And I think that people started accepting me when I would get back to the tram same time as them, or, you know, and so I had to really, really earn it. And I think, you know, as most skiers who have chops have to earn it, you know, but I think there's a lot more space for women these days to be hanging with the boys. And I think it's great.
You can break trail for me any day.
There we go.
Has anybody ever skied with AJ? You find it hard to keep up with her? Yes. Me too. Well, I want to also say something about Peppy. It's hard not to. I have to tell you, Peppy, I'm still in the ski school. They 50 years and they won't let me go. I'm still working on it. What was the question again? So the evolution of skiing is, for me, I found that staying in the ski school, I finally get to cut lines. So that's my evolution, and I'm finally in the front of the line. I get fresh tracks down the bowl every morning. I have some of the best clients imaginable. All you guys, thank you, Mark. And so I'm staying in the ski school, Peppy. And thank you so much for opening the door for so many people. The influence, yeah.
I too have to thank Peppy. Thank you, Peppy, for bringing the snowboard world to Jackson Hole, because you accepted us. Thank you for that. The evolution for me went from edges that were screwed together with tiny little screws and all the way down the side, and the scurfer, and I learned to ski on Snow King and followed Adam McCool and John Hunt, and number of the other local guys as best I could, and did the Galande contest before they took out the Galande jump. And Doug Coombs was also a dear friend of mine, and I was deep into the snowboarding community, and I had moved on to K2, and Doug was also on K2. And just from going to the factory in Vashon and getting to know the folks there, they gave me a pair of Seth pistols, and it got me skiing again after a dozen years of not skiing. So I got to ski with Doug and Mike Emmer. I don't know if you're here, but Mike, you documented a ton of good stuff in the 90s and late 80s. And we all know that skis got fatter and fatter, and snowboards had deep side cut, and there was the Powder Plus early on from Atomic, and then deep side cuts came, and all the snowboarders felt like the skiers were following their trends. But it actually all stuck around, and we had a, great time watching the ski industry get short and deep side cuts. You guys climb on But the evolution has been great to see, and it's just made things easier for everybody.
Go ahead.
Well,
One other thing. Hang on. One other thing. When you're out with these guys taking pictures, and you're standing on top of a run for what seems to be hours, and you're just like, oh my God, when are they ever going to get ready? And you look down. It's easier now. It's cold. It's windy. You're just like, oh my God. And then somebody off the first tram's coming up, and you were on early trams, and they pass you by and ski your line. And you're like, what? No, no, don't go there. Don't go there. And you're like, some of the times it's like, you're just like, okay, that's the end of that one. But then one day, me, Davey, Wade, Doug, Tommy Bartlett, a bunch of us, we were on the Hobacks. And it had been closed for like a week. Nobody had poached it. Davey and I are like, let's go, it's together. We come down, we come back, blasting through these trees, and Wade's standing there. You could just hear the camera going. Wade's like, end of the road.
Well, to Benny's point, one of them why you waited so long. Well, I was working for the marketing department, and Harry Baxter wanted to make sure area ID, i.e., the tram in the photo, and preferably the up car because it had people in it. No one wanted to look at a promo photo of an empty tram. Anyway, what's evolved from when I first showed up in '73 and started taking pictures, jumping off of Survey Point, that was a big deal. Or these small rocks that people would jump off of was a big deal. But slowly you watch them coming off bigger and taller rocks. And then I got not Doug, but Rick Armstrong, who I think I dubbed him Sick Rick. he off of the Insomnia Rock, a good 100 feet, and that got put in Powder Magazine. And I think that had an effect on what people did, what the extreme skiers started doing. The things they do now compared to what extreme skiing was 30, 40 years ago is night and day. You look at ski movies now and you go, oh my Lord.
I've just got one thing to add. A memory. My one of my first memories of skiing is I'd been skiing 2 years. I was skiing 2 years. I mean, it took me 3 years to learn how to ski, so I haven't really learned how yet. 23, learned how to ski. I moved out here when I was 23 years old. And so it was the spring after that second year, and I went with one of my trail crew buddies, Zeke, Dennis Kozicki. And we went over to ski once is enough. And Pepe had showed us how to ski it. I was up there shooting one day, and he was styling it, showing how all the ski instructors how to ski it. Everybody's like, "Oh, how do we do this?" And Pepe just goes, boom, gone. So, I mean, I wasn't planning on skiing it because I wasn't ready. I didn't feel I was ready, and I was with Zeke. I watched him ski, and I said, "Okay, I'm gonna go back and ski Four Shadows," and I just couldn't do it. I gotta ski this. I gotta conquer my fear. And so I laid down and just thought about how to put the moves together and how to do it. And I did. I conquered my fear. I skied it, and then I went home and wrote about it in my diary. And someone read it and said, "Well, you should send this to Powder Magazine." And I tuned it up a little bit, sent it to Powder Magazine, and they ran it. And I had changed it from a first person to a third person story, and I titled it "Craze Teaches Fool That Once is Enough, but Twice is Nice." And, you know, I was fool and my friend was craze, and I just wrote this fictional account of this thing, and Powder published it. That was my first story photo in Powder Magazine. That was 1978, I believe. And that was the beginning of my career. And being able to write as well as shoot was the reason I was able to do what I did and eventually travel around the world doing ski journalism for the magazine industry. And the print industry was really strong then. So.
Excuse me, I wanted to say one more thing too.
Yeah.
I alluded to it, but the photography portion that has changed is incredible because these guys used to like lay on the snow and put their camera, to see the crystals in the front and then the skier in the back. And they would rig up all these weird things. And you're like, you're going to do what? I mean, the photo that's in the book, one of them of me is going into SNS. And I think you had a bamboo pole that you duct taped your camera onto and had a wire coming down the pole and had a clicker that worked on a wire, but it was cold and it was like, and the pole is like waving, and there are so many examples of these guys getting a toe hold in just to lean over an edge to maybe capture you in the background. And now you think of how many pictures we take, not just from digital, but now in our phones, in our pockets, in the movies. And, most of the things we probably did as skiers were not documented on video or film or even photos. And people are like, what? You don't have footage of it? You're like, no. Remember the answering machines? That was our, yeah. But these guys, there was a huge evolution that they, helped pioneer too.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we have time for a few questions from the audience. Do we have any? Otherwise, we can call it and banter. Yes, one down here. And I'll repeat it to the panelists. Who is your favorite skier? Or I always like to soften that, one of your favorite skiers, and why?
Well, besides Pepe, I'd say, like growing up, I watched a lot of ski movies, and there's this one ski movie called Ski Movie 1 that was made by Summit Films. And there's these guys, Roger Staub and Arthur Feuer, and those guys. And they were like jumping off huge stuff. And doing ballet things. But my favorite, I don't know, Rick Hunt, maybe?
I don't know if I have a favorite, but when I watch skiing on TV or on the internet or whatever, I like to watch World Cup ski racing, the speed events, and I actually prefer watching the women ski than the men. I don't know, something about the way the women, when they nail it just right. So
I think, Doug Coombs made everything look easy, so he's easy to choose as like your favorite skier. But Emily skiing right there with him, with her ponytail flying, did an amazing job, and she was my hero for a long time. And I saw Rob Lapierre here tonight. I always loved the way he skis. I haven't seen him ski for a while, but Jessica Baker's here. She's amazing. Had one of my best days of the year last year skiing with Jess. So it's hard to call out a favorite.
And Banter lists. I think we all have great stories with Doug. Boy, huh? Who's my favorite? So the most impressive, I have to say, I saw Lindsey Vaughn skiing with one of my friends on her way down Grand, the run called Grand at the village, coming down to the lift. And she was noticeably, uniquely wonderful. It- I was stopped in my tracks. I may have cried a little bit. And it was the Flynn twins. It was one of the Flynn boys skiing with her, and it was really spectacular. And she just exuded, happiness and good athlete. There you go.
I'm gonna go with Doug Coombs. Always a pleasure to ski with, and as we all know, he had that fluidity that just was just super impressive, and always just a joy to be around on and off the snow too. So I'm gonna go with Doug.
hi, I'm John Seidel. I came here in '69, and I never really got heavily into skiing, but I have some great memories earlier. And Benny just brought me up a great memory at the World Cup. What do you think that was? 72, 73, something like that?
75,
Several.
68,
There were a bunch of them.
74, 75. We're supposed to have the FIS Nationals here in 76, but we didn't have snow.
Yeah, that's right. Well, anyway, a bunch of us skiers got up to the top of the downhill to watch the start, and we watched all those guys go screaming down the course. And I don't know if somebody like Klammer, Franz Klammer, probably 75, because I think he went last, and he had his handlers with him, with the skis and everything, and I remember them putting his bib on and his handler tying the bib very carefully around each side. And there are the ends of the ties are long, right? So this handler took out this big knife, big sharp knife, and went snick and just cut off those flaps, those wings, so they wouldn't flap in the air and probably slow him down. Who knew? And then, of course, after he took off, us ski bums took off down the course, and in about 3 seconds, going faster than I ever wanted to go in my life. So there you go.
I guess I just wanted to add that I think my favorite skier is whoever I'm skiing with at the particular time. There you go.
I guess I would say, who's one of my favorite models to ski with or to photograph. Rick Armstrong and Jason Tattersall were a pair. I remember when I first met Rick, he was hitchhiking to the village, and I picked him up at the Y. We went. He said he was going to go out and be with his film crew, and I said, "Well, I am too." So anyway, that was the first time we hooked up. I photographed him a lot of times. He was a great skier, but there are very many more.
I'll just briefly echo that. Shout out to Jason Tattersall. Tat is the hardest working man in show business, I used to call him. And I mean, he would always have an idea and always do the extra hike and always call me. Let's go. I got it. I know where the snow is. So way to go, Tat.
Yeah.
One more question for their audience. Otherwise, one more in the back, and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay, when did you first ski here? And who did you ski with? And who do you remember the best?
When did you first ski here? So what year? Who did you first ski with? And who do you remember the best? Answer one or all of those questions.
1967, that winter, 66, 67, skiing with, I've got the photo at home. I have the photo at home. It's at Wilson School, and we're skiing with our instructor, which I tried to figure out who he is, but nobody knows for sure. And there's about 8 of us in the class. We were in the lowest class. We were all just learning, basically.
I was too young. I don't remember.
I'm gonna take a pass on that question too, but I remember skiing in 70 or 97. Oh, thank heaven for 97, whatever that year was, 96, 97. And it was the December that just snowed and snowed and snowed every day. Yeah, and that's when Doug and Emily took me under their wing and we skied après-vu like all day. And then at the end of the day, linked up with who knows who out of the U Air Force crew. We skied Granite and I couldn't even see. And I was like with these stars and I didn't know where I was going. And it was, yeah, just really a great day. I didn't answer the question.
Yeah.
First time you skied at Jackson
First time
Hole.
skiing in 1971 at Pepe's summer race camp. And it was what I remember, there was about 10 European coaches. But I remember Corky Fowler, he's American, and Helly Shaler. Do you remember this name? Pepe? Yeah. Helly Shaler. Anyhow, it was at Pepe's camp, and it was in the summertime, and there were some of them spoke English. They were really good skiers.
I had a younger brother who was 7 years younger than me, and we had moved from Second and Fish Creek on the corner there into town, and my parents would send me skiing by myself at Snow King on the rope tow. And my mom was just furious because I would burn out her leather gloves and her wool gloves from riding the rope tow. And
Yeah.
yes, and yes, it was amazing to have a rope tow and be able to go just by yourself as a kid. So, George Pappas was a huge inspiration for me. He was the snowboarder who worked with Pepe to create the snowboard staff the year before I joined the Ski Corp in 88, I think. So that was 87 or 86. Chris Pappas and George Pappas and Dave Dowd, and there was a lot of Colorado people who showed up. They had a World Cup, or they'd had a large event in Colorado the year before, and then all those guys came to Jackson to find out what Chris Pappas had discovered here. years before they got here.
Okay. To find the answer for
I was because 1970, it was my high school Casper Kelly Walsh ski team, and rode up the tram in a whiteout. It was 3 years later before I skied here again.
1974, Big Wally.
okay. So to learn more, head downstairs, buy Wade's book, get it signed. And I think there are lots more stories and really great photographs, obviously, in the book. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming. Thank you to our panelists.
Thank you all. Thank you to Wade.
Big thank you to Wade, yeah.
Thank you all for coming. Documented the last 45 years of our life. We're still 20 something.
And put it all together now.